By nature, some men are burning torches of fiery spirit. They are the fierce disciple of their own human awareness. They are eternal hope. And as such, they enter the mainstream of life, pause for their span of years, and before departing into silence, add new depths of understanding to the meaning of man's humanity. Vincent van Gogh, artist extraordinary, was such a man. Vincent was born in southern Holland in 1853. From the beginning of his life, he was shy, awkward, and at times exhibited a temperament that bordered on morbidity. Red-haired and marked by small eyes buried beneath a massive forehead, he unleashed the full vent of his fiery spirit onto the world, first as an art dealer, then as a minister, and finally at the age of 27 as an artist. In the 10 short years between his beginning as an artist in 1880 and his suicide in 1890, he touched life with the full force of his humanity, recording in both words and paint his total emotional reaction to life. As an artist, Vincent challenged life, met it head-on, holding to the passionate belief that life was too precious, too noble, too exciting to be merely bypassed by human insensitivity. And yet, despite his fierce determination to fulfill his mission, Vincent, like all men, needed an anchor in life. This anchor, for Vincent, was his younger brother, Theo. The bond of human compassion held Vincent and Theo together. No strain, no human limitation, no personal misunderstanding could ever sever this bond, and it lasted until Vincent committed suicide. Theo fulfilled the role of financial supporter, advisor, and friend, while Vincent, whose emotional reactions set him apart from the world, followed the path of his dream, painting. Although different in temperament, the two brothers worked as one to give full vent to the creative genius of Vincent. During the span of years that marked Vincent's greatest productive period as an artist, one single thread held this bond together, the written word as put down in letters. While painting in France, Vincent sent long letters to Theo, describing each mental state, each attempt at exploring through paint total humanity. Theo stood by, always the anchor, present when needed, and when the great creative burst came to an end, Theo was there at the last, by Vincent's side, ready as always to hear his brother's last words to the world. Theo himself died 6 months after Vincent. The letters written to Theo have become history's cables to the past. They reveal soul as an artist and as a man. They record a genius. To them, consequently, we must turn with a degree of silent reverence and listen to the actual words of Vincent, knowing well the path they describe is one upon which we must touch lightly, like a listener approaching a man's most inner dreams. We must place ourselves in the role of Theo, the role of brother listening to brother. And as we listen, we must recognize that we are not hearing the echo of a man, but rather the very essence of the genius that made Vincent great. We listen as a man fights life in the name of great art. What you will hear will be a sampling of these letters, each correlated with a specific painting by Vincent. As a group, these letters span the life of Vincent van Gogh. We begin with the painting, The Potato Eaters, Vincent's first masterpiece.
My dear Theo, I am working on the potato eaters again. I have painted new studies of the heads, and especially the hands are greatly altered. I shall not send it unless I know for sure there is something in it. But I am getting on with it, and I think there are quite other things in it than you have ever seen in my work, at least so distinctly. I mean especially the life. I should have liked to send you the picture on your birthday. Though the actual picture has been painted in a relatively short time, it has taken a whole winter of painting study heads and hands. And as to the few days in which I have painted it, it has been a regular battle, but one for which I felt great animation. I have tried to make it clear how these people, eating their potatoes under the lamplight, have dug the earth with those very hands they put in the dish. And so the painting speaks of manual labor and how they have honestly earned their food. I wanted to give the impression of quite a different way of life than that of us civilized people. Therefore, I am not at all anxious for everyone to like it or to admire it at once. All winter long, I have had in hand the threads of this fabric and have searched for a definite pattern. And though it has taken on a rough, coarse aspect, nevertheless the threads have been selected carefully and according to certain rules, and it may prove to be a real peasant picture. I know it is. It is very dark, and in the white hardly any white has been used, but simply the neutral color. That color in itself is a pretty dark gray, but in the picture it seems white. I will tell you why I have it so. Here the subject is a gray interior, lit up by a little lamp. The dirty linen tablecloth, the smoky wall, the dirty caps in which the women have worked in the field, all this, when seen through the eyelashes in the light of the lamp, proves to be very dark gray, and the lamp, through a yellow-reddish blaze, is lighter still, even much lighter, than the white in question. As to the flesh colors, I know quite well that considered superficially, they seem what is called flesh color. At first in the picture, I tried to paint them so with yellow ochre, red ochre, and white. But that was ever so much too light, and was decidedly wrong. What was to be done? All the heads were finished, and even finished with great care, but I repainted them straightway unmercifully, and the color in which they are painted now is like the color of a good, dusty potato, unpeeled. I dare maintain that in connection with later pictures, the Potato Eaters will keep its value, and that you will see from it that I can do better. I have loved to make it, and I have worked at it with a certain animation. It has not bored me. Perhaps for that reason it will not bore others. Because I believe this, I send it to you.
As a work of art, the Potato Eaters formulated an artistic plateau for Vincent. It would be the plateau upon which he would support his rise into the upper realms of post-impressionism and ultimately expressionism. The calm of its dark colors would soon be replaced by the excitement of the riotous coloring which Vincent first learned from the Impressionists and brought to life in southern France.
Painting, as it is now, promises to become more subtle, more like music and less like sculpture, and above all it promises color, if only it keeps this promise. The sunflowers are getting on. There is a new bunch of 14 flowers on a greenish-yellow ground, so it is exactly the same effect, but in a larger size, a 30 canvas, as the still life of the quinces and the lemons, which you already have, but in the sunflowers the painting is much more simple. Aurier feels it too, when he says even black can be a color, and as for their appearances, I am thinking about it, but don't dare go any further. And I say with caution, I do not yet feel that we have got to that. You need a certain dose of inspiration, a ray from on high that is not in ourselves, in order to do beautiful things. When I had done those sunflowers, I looked for the contrast, and yet the equivalent, and I said, it is the cypresses.
Always the romantic, Vincent was consumed by the stark emotional impact of the country peasant, seeing these humble people as symbols of suffering and human endurance. He probed deeply into their very souls, using color as the key to his psychological search.
In the portrait of the peasant, again, I worked in this way, but without wishing in this case to produce the mysterious brightness of a pale star in the infinite. Instead, I think of the man I have to paint as terrible in the furnace of the full harvest, the full south. Hence the stormy orange shades, vivid as red-hot iron, and hence the luminous tones of old gold in the shadows. Oh, my dear boy, and the nice people will only see the exaggeration as caricature, but what has that to do with us. We have read Letters and Germinal, and if we are painting a peasant, we want to show that what we have read has, in the end, come very near being part of us.
Vincent picked friends from among the common peasants, many of these people his models.
I am now engaged on a portrait of a postman in his dark blue uniform with yellow. A head somewhat like Socrates, hardly any nose at all, a high forehead, bald crown, little gray eyes, bright red chubby cheeks, a big pepper and salt beard, large ears. This man is an ardent Republican and socialist, reasons quite well and knows a lot of things. His wife was delivered of a child today, and he is consequently feeling as proud as a peacock, and is all aglow with satisfaction. In point of fact, I greatly prefer doing a thing like this than doing pictures of flowers. I have a model at last, a zouave, a boy with a small face, a bull neck and the eye of a tiger, and I began with one portrait and began again with another. The half-length I did of him was horribly harsh, in a blue uniform, the blue of enamel saucepans, with braids of a faded reddish-orange, and 2 stars on his breast, an ordinary blue and very hard to do. That bronzed feline head of his, with the reddish cap, against a green door and the orange bricks of a wall. So it's a savage combination of incongruous tones, not easy to manage. The study I made of it seems to me very harsh, but all the same, I'd like always to be working on vulgar, even loud portraits like this. It teaches me something, and above all, that is what I want of my work. The second portrait will be full length, standing against a white wall.
As a colorist, Vincent, like many of the French Impressionists whose orbit he was to pass through, was greatly influenced by Japanese art. This influence, sometimes subtle, sometimes very stark, can be seen in many of his paintings.
Having promised to write to you, I will begin by telling you that this country seems to me as beautiful as Japan, as far as the limpidity of the atmosphere and the gay color effects are concerned. Water forms patches of a beautiful emerald, of a rich blue in the landscape, just as we see it in the Crépon. The sunsets have a pure orange color, which makes the fields appear blue. The sun, a splendid yellow. And all this, though I have not seen the country yet, in its usual summer splendor. If the Japanese are not making any progress in their own country, still it cannot be doubted that their art is being continued in France. At the top of this letter, I am sending you a little scratch of a study that engrosses me, because I want to make something of it. Sailors returning to town, which profiles the strange silhouette of its drawbridge against an enormous yellow sun. I have another study of the same drawbridge, with a group of women washing. As for the portrait of l'Arlésienne, you know that I have promised a copy of it to our friend Gauguin, and you must send it to him. My dear friend Gauguin, it gives me enormous pleasure when you say the Arlésienne's portrait, which was based strictly on your drawing, is to your liking. I tried to be religiously faithful to your drawing, while nevertheless taking the liberty of interpreting through the medium of color the sober character and the style of drawing in question. It is a synthesis of Arlésienne, if you like. As syntheses of Arlésienne are rare, take this as a work belonging to you and me, as a summary of our months of work together. For my part, I paid for doing it with another month of illness, but I also know that it is a canvas which will be understood by you and by a very few others as we would wish it to be understood. If possible, you ought to make me feel that art is alive, you who love art perhaps more than I do. I tell myself that it depends not on art, but on myself, that the only way to get back my confidence and peace of mind is to improve my work. And there we are again, back at the end of my last letter. I am getting old. It's sheer imagination if I should think that art is old lumber, too. And now, if you know what a mousme is, I have just painted one. It took me a whole week. I have not been able to do anything else, not having been very well either. That is what annoys me. If I had been well, I should have attacked some landscapes between times, but I had to reserve my mental energy to do the mousme well. A mousme is a Japanese girl, Provençale in this case, 12 to 14 years old. That makes two portraits now, the Zouave and her. The portrait of the girl is against a background of white strongly tinged with malachite green. Her bodice is striped blood red and violet. The skirt is royal blue with large yellow-orange dots. The matte fresh tones are yellowish gray. The hair tinged with violet. The eyebrows and the eyelashes are black. The eyes orange and Prussian blue. A branch of oleander in the fingers, for the two hands are showing.
Nature, as well as the human figure, inspired Vincent to great creative heights.
I have a study of a garden 1 meter wide, poppies and other red flowers surrounded by green in the foreground, and a square of blue snowballs, then a bed of orange and yellow Africans, then white and yellow flowers, and at last in the background, pink and lilac, and also dark violet scabioses and red geraniums, and sunflowers, and a fig tree and an oleander vine. And in the far distance, black cypresses against low white houses with orange roofs, and a delicate green-blue streak of sky. Oh, I know very well that not a single flower is drawn completely, that they are mere dabs of color, red, yellow, orange, green, blue, violet, but the impression of all these colors in their juxtapositions is there all right, in the painting as in nature. I have confidence at last. I know that it will do some people's hearts good to find poetic subjects again, such as the starry night. I go out at night to paint the stars, and I dream always of a picture like this. These colors give men extraordinary exultation. I have no thought of fatigue. I shall do another picture this very night, and I shall bring it off. I have a terrible lucidity at moments. When nature is so beautiful, I am not conscious of myself anymore, and the pictures come to me as in a dream. I can only let myself go these days that are free from wind, especially as I think the work is getting rather better than the last sent to you.
Painting by day and night, painting in great creative bursts, Vincent touched the edges of emotional stability. At times, under the strain, his mind wandered, but he kept painting as if he had seen a vision of beauty and was determined to set his vision down on canvas for the world. In the town of Arles, he rented a small house, hoping to get companions such as the artist Gogh to come and live with him and paint. This house, its interior, and the surrounding buildings became subjects for many of Vincent's paintings.
I now have a canvas representing the house and its surroundings in sulfur-colored sunshine under a sky of pure cobalt. The subject is frightfully difficult, but that is just why I want to conquer it. It's terrific, these houses yellow in the sun and the incomparable freshness of the blue. And everywhere the ground is yellow, too. I shall send you a better drawing than this rough, improvised sketch out of my head later on. The house on the left is pink with green shutters. I mean the one in the shadow of the tree. That is the restaurant where I go for dinner every day. My friend the postman lives at the end of the street on the left, between the two railway bridges. The night cafe I painted is not in the picture. It is to the left of the restaurant. Today I am all right again. My eyes are still tired, But I have a new idea in my head, another canvas. This time it's just simply my bedroom, but color is to do everything, and giving by its simplification a grander style to things is to be suggestive here of rest or sleep. In a word, to look at the picture ought to rest the brain, or rather the imagination. The walls are pale violet. The ground is of red tiles. The wood of the bed and chairs is the yellow of fresh butter, the sheets and pillows greenish lemon, the coverlet scarlet, the window green, the toilet table orange, the basin blue, the doors lilac. Portraits on the walls, and a mirror, and a towel, and some clothes. The frame, as there is no white in the picture, will be white. I shall work at it again all day, but you see how simple the conception is. It is painted in free, flat washes, like the Japanese prints. No stippling, no hatching, nothing. Only flat colors in harmony. I am also working on a bunch of flowers and a still life of an old pair of shoes. I have heaps of ideas for my work, and if I go on with figure painting very industriously, I may possibly find more. But what's the use? Sometimes I feel too feeble to fight against existing circumstances, and I should have to be cleverer and richer and younger to win. Fortunately for me, I do not hanker after victory anymore, and all that I seek in painting is a way to make life bearable. In my picture of the night cafe, I have tried to express the idea that the cafe is a place where one can ruin oneself, run mad, or commit a crime. I have tried to express the terrible passions of humanity by means of red and green. The room is blood red and dark yellow, with a green billiard table in the middle. There are 4 lemon yellow lamps with a glow of orange and green. Everywhere there is a clash and contrast of the most alien reds and greens in the figures of little sleeping hooligans in the empty, dreary room in violet and blue. The white coat of the patron on vigil in a corner turns lemon yellow or pale green. So I have tried to express, as it were, the powers of darkness in a low wine shop, and all this in an atmosphere like a devil's furnace of pale sulfur, all under the appearance of Japanese gaiety and the good nature of Tartarin. I have just finished the outside of a cafe, with the terrace lit up by a big gas lamp in the blue night, and a corner of starry blue sky. I often think that the night is more alive and more richly colored than the day. What a country! I cannot paint it as lovely as it is, but it absorbs me so much that I let myself go, never thinking of a single rule. I have no doubts, no hesitation in attacking things. I am beginning to feel that I am quite a different creature from the one I was when I came here.
On the following day, December 24th, a telegram arrived from Gogh that called Theo to Arles. Vincent, in a state of terrible excitement and in a high fever, had cut off a piece of his own ear and taken it as a present to a woman in a brothel. There had been a violent scene. Roland, the postman, managed to get him home, but the police intervened and found Vincent bleeding and unconscious in bed and sent him to the hospital. Theo found him there, poor fighter and poor sufferer, and stayed over Christmas. Gogh went back with Theo to Paris. Later, Vincent painted a self-portrait showing his bandaged ear.
My dear Theo, thank you very much for your letter, for the 100-franc note enclosed, and also for the 50-franc money order. I think myself that Gauguin was a little out of sorts with the good town of Arles, the little yellow houses where we work, and especially with me, As a matter of fact, there are bound to be grave difficulties to overcome here too, for him as well as for me. But these difficulties are more within ourselves than outside. Altogether, I think that either he will definitely go or else definitely stay. A good handshake, Vincent.
As a degree of emotional stability returned, Vincent once again went into the open fields and painted, finding ever new subjects under the hot sun of southern France.
The hills, full of pungent-smelling plants, are very nice, and owing to the clearness of the air, one sees much further from the heights than we do at home, and the blue sky never tires me. I have a cornfield very yellow and very light, perhaps the lightest canvas I have done, and the cypress is always occupying my thoughts. It is as beautiful in line and proportion as an Egyptian obelisk, and the green has a quality of high distinction. It is a splash of black in a sunny landscape, but it is one of the most interesting of the black tones, and the most difficult to strike exactly that I can imagine. But then you must see the cypress against the blue, in the blue rather. To paint nature here, as everywhere, you must have lived in it a long time. I am in better health now. I have just now done 2 new studies like these. You have a drawing of one of them already, a farm by the high road among cornfields, a meadow full of very yellow buttercups, a ditch with irises, green leaves and purple flowers, a town in the background, some gray willows, and a strip of blue sky. If the meadow does not get mowed, I would like to do this study again, for the subject was very beautiful, and I had some trouble getting the composition. A little town surrounded by fields, all covered with yellow and purple flowers, exactly like, can't you see it, like a Japanese dream. In any case, a summer sun. The town, violet, the orb, yellow, the sky, blue-green. The wheat has all the tones of old copper, green, gold, gold-yellow, bronze-yellow, green-red. Size 30 canvas, square. I painted it with a mistral raging. My easel was fixed in the ground with iron stakes, a method which I recommend to you. One rams the legs of the easel into the ground, and then one drives in an iron peg 20 inches long beside them. Then one ties the whole thing together with a rope. In this way you can work with the wind blowing.
The golden sun, which lured Vincent into the fields to paint, could not heal the disorder of his mind, and frequently he would lose consciousness in the fields, lying all day under the sun until discovered by a passing peasant. So desperate did his condition eventually become that at times he was confined to the mental ward. But he continued to paint when strength permitted. His disorder was reflected in his painting. The trembling of his own mind was soon transferred to his canvases, and they became more dynamic than ever, seemingly caught in the quaking of his own mind.
I feel quite normal now, and do not remember the bad days at all. With the work and very regular food, this will probably last a pretty long time, notwithstanding the ups and downs, and anyhow, I shall go on working like this unless the thing appears. For at the end of the month, you will receive another dozen studies. Am I mistaken? Your letter seems to me to be very late this time. Unfortunately, there are no vineyards here, but for that I have done nothing else this autumn. There are plenty, but it would be necessary to go and stay in another village to do them. On the other hand, the olive trees are very characteristic, and I am struggling to catch them. Oh, my dear Theo, if you saw the olives just now, the leaves, old silver, and silver turning to green against the blue, and the orange-colored, plowed earth. It is something quite different from your idea of it in the north, the tender beauty, the distinction. It is like the pollard willows of our Dutch meadow, of the oak bushes of our dunes. That is to say, the rustle of an olive grove has something very secret in it, and immensely old. It is too beautiful for us to dare to paint it, or to be able to imagine it. The oleander, that speaks of love, and is beautiful like the Lesbos of Puvid Chavannes with women on the seashore. But the olive is different. If you want to compare it to something, it is de la Croix. I have two landscapes in hand, views taken among the hills. One is the country that I see from the window of my bedroom. In the foreground, a field of corn ruined and dashed to the ground after a storm, a boundary wall, and beyond it the gray foliage of a few olive trees, some huts, and the hills. It is like a landscape of extreme simplicity in coloring. It will make a companion piece to the study of the bedroom, which has gotten damaged. When the thing represented is in point of character absolutely in agreement with the manner of representing it, isn't that just the element that gives a work quality?
Religion, as if an echo from the days when he struggled to be a minister, once again entered Vincent's vision as subject matter for his paintings.
Well, with my mental disease, I keep thinking of so many other artists suffering mentally, and I tell myself that this does not prevent one from exercising the painter's profession as if nothing was amiss. When I realize that here the attacks tend to take an absurd religious turn, I should almost venture to think that this even necessitates a return to the north. Don't talk too much about this to the doctor when you see him. But I do not know if this is not caused by living in these old cloisters so many months, both in Arles Hospital and here. In fact, I really must not live in such an atmosphere. One would be better in the street. I am not indifferent, and even when suffering, sometimes religious thoughts bring me great consolation. So this last time, during my illness, an unfortunate accident happened to me. That lithograph of de la Croix's Pietà, along with some other sheets, fell into some oil, and the paint was ruined. I was very distressed. Then, in the meantime, I have been busy painting it, and you will see it someday. I made a copy of it on a size 5 canvas. I hope it has feeling. The etchings which you sent me are very fine. On the back of this page, I have scribbled a sketch after a painting I have done of 3 figures, which are in the background of the etching of Lazarus, the dead man and his 2 sisters. The cave and the corpse are white-yellow-violet. The woman, who takes the handkerchief away from the face of the resurrected man, has a green dress and orange hair. The other has black hair and a gown of striped green and pink. In the background, a countryside of blue hills, a yellow sunrise. Thus, the combination of colors would itself suggest the same thing which the chiaroscuro of the etching expresses.
In the following self-portrait, painted only a few months before Vincent committed suicide, the complete deterioration of the man can be seen clearly. He explained the portrait to his brother Theo in these words.
Here I give a conception of mine, which is the result of a portrait I painted in the mirror. A pinkish-gray face with green eyes. Ash-colored hair, wrinkles on the forehead and around the mouth, stiff wooden, very red beard, considerably neglected and mournful, but the lips are full, a blue peasant's blouse of coarsened linen, and a palette with citron yellow, vermilion, malachite green, cobalt blue, in short, all the colors on the palette except the orange beard, but only whole colors, the figure against a grayish-white wall. You will say that this resembles somewhat, for instance, the face of death in Van Eyden's book or or some such thing, all right, but it is a figure like this, and it isn't an easy job to paint oneself, at any rate if it is to be different from a photograph. And you see, this, in my opinion, is the advantage that Impressionism possesses over all the other things. It is not banal, and one seeks after a deeper resemblance than the photographers.
The last painting by Vincent was The Wheat Fields with Blackbirds. In it can be sensed the frustration of an entire life devoted to the task of creating a vision for the world that would reflect the presence of man as well as the dominance of nature. The foreboding overtures can be sensed between the lines of Vincent's last letter to Theo. He speaks of mankind. He bares his soul for the last time, and then, without warning, feeling he has too long been a burden to his brother and the world, Vincent ends his life by suicide, bringing to a close one of the strangest and most touching stories of any artist's. This is Vincent's farewell letter to the world.
Ideas for my work come to me in swarms, so that although solitary, I have no time to think or to feel. I go on like a steam engine at painting. I think there will hardly ever be a standstill again. And my view is that a living studio you will never find ready-made. It is created from day to day by patient work. It is the experience and the poor work of every day which alone will ripen in the long run and allow one to do something completer and truer. We must work as much and with as few pretensions as a peasant if we want to last. This morning I saw the country again after the rain, quite fresh, and all the flowers. Oh, if I could have worked without this accursed malady, what things I should have done, isolated from others, following what the country said to me. The one thing we can always claim is that you and I did make an attempt here in the same direction as some others who were understood no better and have had their hearts broken by circumstances. Anyway, what consoles me is the very great desire I have to see you again, you and your wife and child, and the many friends who remember me in misfortune, as indeed I too do not cease to think of them. Yes, I also feel that there is a very long stretch of time between the day when we said goodbye at the station and now. Well, my own work, I am risking my life for it, and my reason for that has half floundered. That's all right, but you are not among the dealers in men. You can still choose your side, acting with humanity, but what's the use with a handshake in thought?